Let's jump back into it. Let's talk about the prestigious LA Bowl with UCLA and Boise State.
Uh,
Uh, God knows that UCLA has had better years, in the dim past, but it's not where they're at right now. And that's even, I think that that from everything that I've heard, there have been two different people fly banners over the Westwood area of LA where UCLA is located, um, lobbying for the firing of Chip Kelly, and oh no, and so yeah, it's bad times out there, and I mean we'll talk maybe some about it later. But what makes me even more interested is that I'm always one who I'm intrigued by situations in which it's pretty apparent that a coach is not succeeding in the way you thought he would, and his style's just not working out. And I think we got to say Chip Kelly he is definitely a stylized man, a system man if there ever was one. I think, and I just don't think that. I think his day's passed. And I think it's pretty obvious with the results that he's getting from UCLA. Congratulations to them for the big win over USC. That's a big deal. But I mean, as we know, USC is not what USC is expected to be. But UCLA they just can't gain any traction. And then to think that the AD comes out in a statement the other day, and really is supportive of keeping Chip Kelly, as they move forward into the Big Ten. And I don't know, man. I don't see bright days for the Bruins. That's just me, but that's I guess that's neither here nor there in relation to the LA Bowl. But what do you think? What do you anticipate seeing in the LA Bowl? My first question is can Boise State throw the football? Because if they can, that's going to be the night. UCLA's bringing in they're bringing in a pretty sketchy pass defense.
yeah, that's the big thing. Because while you say it's pretty sketchy, it's even sketchier than what it was all year. Because you got to remember, 3 of their starting DBs, being 2 safeties and their starting corner, all transferred out, so they will not be playing in this game.
How in the world does that even happen?
The same way that their starting quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, and their backup running back all also transferred out.
So basically, it's one of those things that and maybe it may be good for them. Maybe with the transfer portal, as much as we can gripe about it, is that if you're not going to make a move, we're going to make a move. So you can't fault them. But God, man, that's going to be tough. I mean, because already just looking at some of their numbers here, in terms of like just yards per pass, they're top 25. Opponents' interceptions thrown, top 30. Sacks, their sack percentage, top 15. They have some things that are working for them. But whenever you look at completion percentage, you're completing over 60% of your passes against UCLA, and you're throwing for over 230 a game. That's pretty tough, and everybody knows it too, because if you look at the number on that, it's just something. I mean, just interesting. You don't hear the stat mentioned a lot, but the percentage of plays, or the opponent's percentage of plays that are passes, 57.4, and that's good for 130th in the nation. There are precious few people that anybody throws the ball on as much as they throw it on UCLA, and there has to be a reason.
Yeah, that already suspect defense.
And if you say that those, they're going to be at least filling some losses in the back, in defensive backfield, I just don't think it's going to be good for them.
I think it's going to be a very sloppy football game that I would not personally enjoy watching. Just a lot of mistakes and errors, just not good football.
Yeah. Now, the one thing though is that as spotty as the pass is, they are a good rushing defense. They really are. Every single the main categories that are tracked here, rush. Which percentage of plays are rushes. They don't run it on them much, probably because they're throwing it on them. And then yards per rush, they're only giving up 2.3. I mean, that's good for number 3 in the country. and also 67.7 yards per game. I mean, that's good for number 3 in the country. Even if you say, yeah, they're throwing it all the time, and I understand that, but they are nevertheless playing good against the run. Now, one place, just to mention that, 2 places that I think that this is where I think this bowl game is going to hurt them. Just looking, at just team rankings, they are out loud terrible on red zone scoring. 133rd in the nation. That's awful. And they are also pretty bad at, as far as red zone defense. 59 in the nation. They 82.3% of the time you score in the red zone against UCLA. Don't know. That doesn't sound too positive. But Chip Kelly, has been a good coach in the past, and maybe he can pull something out of his tail. I don't know.
Yeah.
What say you?
I mean, while we look at UCLA, I think there's always the other side of the story, which is Boise State. I think it's going to be hard for them to pull it off, even with UCLA being as down as they are with all their transfers and graduates. I mean, Boise State's starting quarterback is already transferred. And they don't have many others that transferred, but they have a QB, a wide receiver. So, I mean, the passing game is going to hurt, especially since that's what they need to do.
Yep.
But
and
I'll go ahead with this real quick. There's also the other story, which is their backup quarterbacks for both teams might be better than their starters.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So go ahead with that.
I mean, I know UCLA has the freshman 5-star Dante Moore, but Garbers has put up a better show and has held the ball, kept it in their possession a lot better. And that is a big aspect with games like this. If you're down to the wire and you're giving them the ball, that hurts your team a lot more than just an incomplete pass.
And and I know that Moore played more football than him. So I mean that's always, got to pitch that in there. But what was it? I think Garber was 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions?
Yeah. Yeah, and compared to Dante's 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions.
And and then one thing too, also on this is that I just saw a report that's was from yesterday that all those UCLA transfer guys, none of them will be playing. There's nobody who's going to be allowed to play. That was something that Chip Kelly, I guess, enforced. And good for them. If they don't want to be here, then go be someplace else. But I wanted to look at that the stats for the Garbers guy, because completion percentage alone, he's way better. I mean, way better.
Have a lot more completions on a lot less attempts.
So, this guy's he's not bad. And, even if you go back to last year, he didn't throw nearly as many passes last year, but he was a 70% completion percentage, 7.9 a throw. 2 of 2, touchdowns, interceptions. So, this guy's not a bad ball player at all. And one of the things that, let's look at so if we look at recent games, he had against the loss to Cal, he was just 7 of 9. So you can't say that he didn't really impact that game much at all. But the thing that really stands out in so you got the Stanford win, which they blew Stanford slam out. Beat Colorado, by 12, lose to Arizona, beat USC. So if you look at them, the thing that really stands out to me in those games is that he throws 1 interception in all 3 of those games. Now, he eats 3 sacks, but at the same time, I think it goes back to what you were saying. He's not giving the other team the ball. And that might be enough. I mean, it really might be enough to help UCLA to, to get something, going. And maybe, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to see because, I mean, I'm one of those. I've never been a big Chip Kelly fan. I mean, not that I have anything against him, but he never really has, I've never really cared that much for Oregon football or Chip Kelly or when he was with the Eagles, whatever, 49ers. But, I'd like to see him be able to vindicate himself on some level. And it would have to be a tough life, knowing that like everybody in LA that's attached to UCLA football wants you gone. And you've got players, leaving the team right and left because they have that option now. I'd like to see if that motivates him some. Maybe it will, because I mean, I think that that this little streak that they had there with Garber, who was playing a lot of football for them, I think it suggests that they can make something happen. He's had 3 games in which 3 of the 5 games, that he recorded stats in, and in 2 of those games, the Stanford game and the Colorado game, he threw over 25 passes. He was over 70% completion. I mean, this dude's a quarterback, I think.
They also have a common opponent in San Diego State University, and while UCLA is probably going to look like a different team for the most part, they won 35-10, while Boise State only won 34-31.
Yeah,
so I
that's
think
a big difference.
Their level of offense is probably about the same, even with the quarterbacks and everybody leaving. Their offense is probably about the same. I think UCLA probably runs the ball a little bit better. But I think Boise State might have a better defense coming into this game. It all just depends on their game plan, really, because I think this is a good 50-50 game to watch.
Yeah, I think you're right. And on that, talking about UCLA's running game, they do have a good running game. And, they have 2 backs, one over 800, one over 700. So, that's not, that's nothing to sneeze at, really. So, that's something you want to see, if you're Chip Kelly, can you get these running backs, involved? They've also got, just looking, just off the stats, right in front of me, their 2 leading receivers, they together 1,000 yards. Both of them, over 10 yards a catch. And this is something that might be interesting. I always like seeing this in general, and it's, I guess it's something I don't think Chip Kelly is doing, but maybe, I don't know Chip Kelly too well now. He has got 2 tight ends, a Habermel and a Matavo. Matavo has 12 catches, 266 yards, 35-yard long, 22-yard average. Habermel, 7 catches for 142 yards. That is 2 tight ends with over 5 catches for the year, over a 20-yard average, both of them good for 2 touchdowns. That is something that I think could hurt. If you got a guy who is as accurate, as Garbers is going to be a quarterback, and you got these backs that can, that can carry the load, they might keep you in the ball game. I mean, this might be one of those that, that we see some points scored in it. So, because that's what you'd expect with a Chip Kelly team, and I think it's what you expect out of a Boise State team. So yeah, I mean, I think it could be fun to watch. I mean, are there any like, glaring, I guess, problems? Just in terms of interceptions, they've 14 interceptions, but 11 of those were more. So, I mean, I think that number goes down significantly whenever you have Garbers in a game. I'm wondering about fumbles. How many just turnovers in general does this team produce? One thing I wanted to see, they lost bad to Cal, and 33-7, and so that might be something to see right there. What went so wrong in that game? And now Garbers did play in that game. 8 of 19 third down efficiency. That's not very good. That's not going to keep you on the field. 4 turnovers, 2 of them, 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions. And I think if you're Boise, I think that's the thing that you want to be honing in on. And they only ran the ball for 70 yards against Cal. So, that'll usually do it to you. if you're not getting over 50% on third down conversions, if you're not running the ball for, over 100 yards, and if you're turning it over 4 times, you're probably going to get smoked. And I think that what you could say from that is that, erase those 2 turnovers, that's a lot, or those 4 turnovers, that's a closer game. And like we said, I mean, Cal's not the best in the world, they're 6-6, but, maybe that's saying something about UCLA. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Now, this is one, like we said, I mean, I said maybe earlier, I don't know if it's on the recording, Boise State's also without their starting quarterback. Is that right?
Yes, he is transferred out to Arkansas.
Okay, so now we talked a lot about the Garbers kid at UCLA. What does Boise State bring in at quarterback?
They have a solid backup from what he's played. Looks about the same as the situation over at UCLA. Their backup looks to be a little better, controls the ball a little better. Which, I mean, I'm sure they put their backups in a better position, not making as many forced throws into Totter's positions. But at the same time, why wouldn't you play that brand of football with your starting QB if it works out better for you?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could be a lot of coaching, but just from looking at it, I mean, their backup Madison has about the same, looks about to be the same numbers as Garbers. Like, it really does.
That's really funny. I mean, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 61% completion percentage, just under 1,200 yards.
Yeah, about the same amount of attempts and completions.
That ain't a bad deal. I mean, these boys are going to take care of the football, is what that's saying to me.
Yeah, which I like. I like, especially when you're relying on that running game. And you look at Boise State's rushing game, and they have a guy over 1,000. They have a guy
another one
600.
over 600.
And it looks like their quarterback runs the ball a little bit, and he won't be there. But in Madison, he's running the ball a little bit too.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, Madison's over, 33 carries over a 3.6 average. I mean, if you got a quarterback that can pick you up 3.5 yards whenever it counts, I mean, that's a heck of a thing to have. I mean, I honestly think that might be, if we lay it in and we say all things being equal, I think that running game is what's going to be the difference in this game. I mean, just seeing those stats. What's our guy's name here? Ashton Jonty. I would figure that's a French pronunciation. Maybe butchering it. But I mean, that's a heck of a season. Sophomore, 203 carries, 1,262 yards, 14 touchdowns, 6.2 carry.
That's a good
you
year.
Give me a running back getting 6.2 in Division I college football. I'm probably going to win a game or two. And then, and likewise, the backup is nothing to sneeze at. Senior, 117 carries, 610 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5.2 per carry. You got 2 guys in the backfield with over 5 yard per carry averages. One of them, we just put 2 of them together. I mean, if you put those 2 guys in Madison together, you basically got a 2,000 yard rushing attack this year.
Do you want to hear something even crazier? Is that
go for it.
Jonty is actually their second leading receiver too, with 39 receptions for 552 on a 14.2 average with 5 touchdowns.
So this young man's going to be playing NFL football probably after next year.
Yeah, that guy is their team, is what it looks like.
Sounds like it.
I mean, that's like a third of their starting QB's stats right there.
Yep. And so, your question on that is how do you stop that guy? That's one of the, I mean, if UCLA's secondary is going to be hurting, I think that's, you got a 1-2 combo, like, him coming out of the backfield, and a receiver with 800 on the season. That might be more than the Bruins can bear. I guess, pardon the bad pun, but it's one of those. What do you think happens if UCLA loses this game bad?
I mean, we've already saw an influx of transfers from UCLA. I don't think that stops if they lose. And I don't know how you can keep Chip Kelly after all that, especially with their recruiting class coming up. I mean, they have 11 commits and they're ranked 64 for their 2024 class. That is terrible, especially to be at UCLA. That is absolutely terrible. When just a few
Yeah.
years ago they had Dante Moore last year as a 5-star quarterback. I mean, they've had
Right.
NFL guys for the past decade is what it seems like, and that's some of the best players they've ever had. And they just had the #1 draft pick with Josh Rosen a few years ago. And
Yeah.
people tend to forget about things like that. It's only been a
Right.
few years.
And the thing that really just amazes me is looking at it all. Um, I I mean, I know there are people who probably I'm saying this and someone's well, what about, name somebody, name 10 people. I don't know. But man, Chip Kelly's career, I just don't know, man. I mean, whenever I think of it, I cannot help but think that that somehow time has passed him by. Cause if you look at his, I watch a lot of just, clinic tapes and things like that. He is so good. And I mean, I know he's one of those that he's got a quirky personality. And he's not a charmer by any means, but that guy knows offensive football and he knows team football. It's so interesting to hear him talk and just his ideas and how he does stuff and what he did at Oregon, is really, I mean, it's just amazing. And, and there's so many people who have said so much about, that system he ran there. It's really impressive, but God, man, I just can't help but think that the worst move that man ever made was going to the NFL. I mean, that's all I can think. And
Yeah.
and I wonder what it looks like if he does not go to the NFL, because they were, played the national championship. I mean, they were a fine team, after he left. Oregon has not been bad, and I know that Oregon has had, from what was his name before him, Mike Bellotti before him. They've had some great coaches, and that program has been unbelievable for what it has been historically. These last, 25 years have really been solid for Oregon, and I just can't help but think that, man, he made the wrong move going to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he had some great players at Oregon too. I mean, flat out
Yeah,
great. I mean,
definitely.
generational players for what they was doing at the time. And I mean, they only lost to Cam Newton when he was insane.
Oh yeah,
When
yeah,
he was
definitely.
playing, and that was a good Auburn team and a crazy year for what it's worth.
Yeah,
Uh, But I mean, he didn't even do much in the NFL. I mean, I guess he got paid a little bit more money, but
yeah. I don't know. It
uh,
just seems like the lure of it was just, I don't know. Because when I look at what he does, and you hear people say that all the time about how much the NFL has changed, and it has changed. It has adopted a lot of I think a lot of the college ways with, spread offense type stuff. But whenever you look at it, man, the NFL is just it's on a level that's far different from anything, that even your best college coach, most of them can do. And I think that that's kind of borne out by the fact that you don't see many of them getting into it. And I just, the other day I'd mentioned watching the NFL a little bit more closely this year than I have in the past. And of course, I mean, my thing, I guess that what gets me is whenever you're tied up in coaching and you take it seriously, it's pretty hard to just watch a game, have a good time with it. It's, you're watching it with a different set of eyes, basically. And the thing that I kept seeing just, I mean, even with just middle of the road NFL teams, is I'm just sitting there thinking, my God, they are so good. And I think that's a big difference. Because, Chip Kelly, it was almost, I mean, the beauty of that spread option offense that he was running at Oregon was that he figured him out a system to where he could just telegraph plays. If the running back is side by side with the quarterback, it's outside zone. Go stop it, and we're going to beat you with a keep. And that's what they did. If the running back is behind the quarterback, inside zone, A gap, here we come, but don't get beat with a key. Or don't get like a little play action, wrinkle thrown at you. And he was in such command of that offense that I don't know. I mean, I would like to have seen what it would have been had he stayed with it. I mean, could he have kept on going with it? I mean, obviously things change, but he really had something going out there. And it seemed like the kids at Oregon had bought into like, a lot of like what people would call his craziness. Like, I mean, his policies on sleep and food and, and all these things, like, his like little, I guess the philosopher side of him. I just don't know how you give that up, but I guess the lure of the NFL, I've only known one coach, who spent time in the NFL. And, and he told me point blank that he's like, the only reason that I went was because I wanted to say that I'd done it. And I think that that's there. I think for, now, well, a guy like me, ever be at that point? No, I won't. But do I understand what that means to say, hey, I've got this opportunity, I ought to take it? Yeah, I mean, I understand what that means. But you can't help but think what might have been, because I think that the thought was that whenever Kelly comes into LA, he's on a big stage, he's going to have a good recruiting ground. It just ain't worked out. I mean, it just ain't worked out. And, you can't help but wonder if it's just, that time's passed him by a little bit. Because UCLA is not really being competitive on the level that I think people wanted them to. And that statement the other day when basically the athletic director is saying, we're going to ride with Kelly just because it's stable right now. And that's not what he said, but that's, if you read through it, I think it's this keeping him this year is a stability thing. They're moving to the Big Ten. I think they want to minimize as many distractions, as many changes as they can possibly have. I think I also read that they got a new chancellor of the university. That plays into it. I mean, they're wanting stability out there, but the thing of it is stability is something you can have, or at least that kind of stability, where you're just saying, we're not really looking at the success of the program. We just want it to be there, and we want it to not be, in upheaval. That works if you are maybe you're a high school where your players just can't jump around. But even in high school, they can do that. But now, whenever you've got major players who've been through this recruiting process that's made them into superstars, and you give them the opportunity of a transfer portal, those suckers are going to skate as soon as it looks bad. And I think that just what you're seeing from the UCLA kids who have transferred out already, and that Chip Kelly's not going to play in this bowl game, I think that they're already basically, they're voting with their feet. They're saying, yeah, this Kelly's not the guy. And it looks like UCLA is oddly content with being in a bad spot where their program is concerned. Because one of the things that stands out to me, to go back to what we talked about before, is every single negative that you have, in my opinion. Now, do I have facts to back this up? No, but it's just common experience. Every bad look that you have, every moment where it's like people don't have support for your program, where they don't have confidence in your coach, when they see players transferring, you're killing yourself where NIL money is concerned. And I think that is the one thing right now that UCLA cannot stand to do, because you're out there surrounded by a bunch of good teams. And you're moving into a conference where you have Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, that are going to be, dominating the landscape, for, always, like they always do, except for in rare years. I think UCLA's taking a big risk at becoming super irrelevant. And that kind of, to me, undermines the logic of their jump to the Big Ten. It looks like that jump to the Big Ten is saying we don't have faith in the Pac-10 anymore, Pac-12, I think now it's called. So we're going to jump to the Big Ten where, national championship level football's played by, a handful of teams. We're going to go, play with the big boys. And it looks like you have no idea what it takes to be a big boy. So I think this game matters a heck of a lot to UCLA, even though it's a very low tier bowl game.
Yeah, and
do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think if they win, they could bolster their recruiting a little bit. But
Sure.
I just don't see any way out of this. And speaking of their program, without getting rid of Chip Kelly,
Yeah.
I don't see a realistic way out. And you move to a different conference, which is going to be a lot better than their conference right now. And it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
different
definitely.
brand of football at the same time. Because, I mean, while you may see Ohio State having good quarterbacks, you see J.J. McCarthy at Michigan, you have Aller at Penn State. They have solid quarterbacks, but
Right.
they're all running teams. I mean, you can see it.
Yep.
They play with their line, their offensive and defensive line. That is what wins them ball games, and they run the ball a lot. And there's no way UCLA will probably be able, and most of the Pac-12 teams, they probably won't be able to compete with that next year. It'll be awakening. I think Oregon and Washington are probably the only two teams that can compete with the line play. And I don't
Yeah.
think they'd win it. I think they compete. But UCLA has a tough road ahead, and it's not going to get any better. So they have to win this game, in my opinion, if they want to stay around in college football.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, and that's what I think. I think we could honestly just conclude on that. That's the funny thing about, these lower tier bowl games is that I know a lot of people aren't crazy about watching them. I mean, I myself am not crazy about watching them. Many years I don't. But the thing that is very interesting about all of it, got a child melting down. But one thing that's very interesting about all of it is this is where stuff is I guess where careers begin and end, you know. You got a guy like, you know, you think about some of your lower tier guys who have really made a name for themselves, think Chris Peterson, think a guy like that, who rose to prominence at Boise State. They worked their way up and, they finally got onto a big stage and made the splash. He jumped, to a bigger program at Washington, then, moves on from there. But then stop and think about a guy like Chip Kelly is if he doesn't make it here, I don't think he gets another shot.
I mean, I could see him getting another shot somewhere only because it's Chip Kelly and his resume, but I don't think it's going
to be on the par of UCLA though.
No,
because that's a potential powerhouse program.
I mean, that'll be in the big next year, the Big 16, whatever they're going to call that. Like that'll be in a power conference next year, and that'll be one of the four that they'd be in. And they're playing this in Inglewood, California too. So I mean, they have the home field advantage. Like they have things in their favor. With that being said, though, I just don't see them pulling it off. I see Boise State winning, and I think it's close. I think it's probably around 38-35. I see a lot of points being scored. I just don't see UCLA pulling it out.
I'm with you. And, and I think that, we saved the best for last, and I know we've had a lot to say about this game and a lot of the oddities that it presents and, the storylines coming, into it and will come out of it. But I think this is a game that matters. I mean, I think it's an early game in the bowl season, but I think it's one that, I think this one matters a lot more than most December 16th bowl games are going to mean. So yeah. I'm interested to see how it plays out. I think you're right. I mean, I think this is going to be a less than a touchdown game because honestly, I think both these teams have something to prove. Whenever you come in there and one of the unifying facts that bring these two teams together is that they neither have their starting quarterback, both of whom have gone to the transfer portal. That's odd. Whenever you got bowl eligible teams that come out making the and as soon as the season's over, your quarterbacks are gone. Man, I don't know. That's weird. And it's weird times, It's weird times is all you say. But I do think that, regardless of what anybody thinks, I think that, this coming Saturday evening, this is one to tune into. It really is.
Yeah. And even with UCLA's loss with their defensive coordinator, that's a big hit. It's a big hit.
It is.
I don't know if he's coaching I don't know if he's going to coach the game or not, but
yeah, I haven't heard.
Yeah, I don't think they came out and said that yet. I'd assume so. I don't think he'll be with the USC yet, but either way, like that's them kids playing for him. You know, they might want to play harder. They might not want to play harder, just depending on how that situation is.
And you know, and that's a toss of the coin. You know, you can't ever tell. You really can't.
Yeah, that's if he's there.
I don't know.
If he's not there, that planning goes out the window, and I mean that's a top defense statistically. So I mean, all that planning that they would have for Boise State goes out the window, and it's set upon another guy.
That's exactly it. And that Boise State offense, and you know that Boise State offense isn't one that I would want to just have to plan for in a matter of weeks.
No, especially that running back.
You need to have something, you know, you need to have something ready for, you know, that offense, and but it isn't, you know, it seems shaky for the Bruins. They need the win. I don't think they're going to get the win. Anything else to be said?
That being said, I think we'll wrap this one up. Guess we'll see what happens and meet back after.
We'll see how it pans out for our picks, you know, come Saturday night. So, until then, you know, y'all keep watching it.